Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of my silent season. Wow, last episode was a lot, but it was amazing. It's personally one of my favorite episodes, and that's not because of the person alone, but part of it. However, because of the fact that I had a lot of learning takeout from that episode, and you could tell, we had to divide it into part one and part two. I have a short testimony to share. Yesterday, whenever you're watching this, yesterday, as at the day I recorded, um, my mechanic brought in my car and he was trying to park, but all of a sudden he wanted to move me in, the wall. But thank God I'm alive today. My bones are not broken, and any of those things. God is good, and every day He reminds me that He is good and is very, very intentional about my life. But today is another good day. Today is an amazing day. We have a very amazing, special guest. Our guest and I have been talking about our coming on the show for a very long time. She was among the first people that was supposed to, come on the show. And thank God, today has finally happened, and she is going to be talking to us today. So she's a media and communications specialist. She also graduated from Covenant University, so this is among the Covenant University series as well. But what's very important, just like Florence, she also graduated from my set. We're the same year, elite set. So this is a special. I think I'll just create a special episode to say my Covenant University elite set Eagles on the show. But anyway, I'm excited to welcome, our special guest. She's the convener of the Joy Gathering, a 30-minute worship program on MixLR. If you have a few minutes, you're driving to work, you can also tune in the Joy Gathering on MixLR. And I'm excited to introduce, what other word? Have you meet Temitope?
Hi.
Hi, Temitope.
Hi. It's nice to be here.
Temilola.
Temitope.
Lola.
Nice. You said it right. Yeah.
Aha. I'm certain I said it right. Don't mind me. Anyway, welcome. It's been like a long time coming.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for accepting, my very interesting invitation. But so I know I did like a crooked, but pardon my word, introduction of you. But it'd be best if you can tell us more about yourself.
Okay, my name is Temitope Ogunlana, aka Tope Lano. That simply means Tope Lano, like Lano, shining light, right? Yeah, so I'm a light bearer.
So let me just stop you a bit. So Ogunlana is your husband's surname?
Yes.
But your initial surname?
Olariwaju.
Okay. So you didn't have that intro before?
So even then, I sort of have always been okay, maybe I should finish the explanation. So growing up, I've always sort of been like a communications person. In fact, when I was supposed to go to Covenant University, my father, my dad, and mom suggested that I go read mass communication, but I didn't want to do JAM again. And I just thought that I should just go do what I eventually did, which was what I did. So yeah, I've always been like that kind of vocal person. And the name Topelano simply just means that I'm a light bearer. I help people to project their self, project their lights, project their image, and to just speak what they want, people to know about them. So yeah, so currently I work as a brand and communication specialist. I help brands to communicate with their audience. So I manage some accounts, social media accounts, digital accounts. I also help people with digital strategies and branding, more or less. So that's pretty much what I'm about. Aside from that, I recently rounded up a degree in international relations at a university. So I am a development specialist. That's also one part of my being. So in all, what I'm about is just helping the world to shine, people to shine. Yeah.
I think the most interesting part is that you guys went to science class and you're forming science students, and then you're now back to art class and trying to be like us.
Not
But
really.
it's okay. It's okay. We will
Yeah.
we'll manage you guys. You know.
Thank you.
One very interesting question I wanted to ask before we get into our conversation is, why the joy gathering?
Okay, so it started off not really as a weekly thing. So when I was in Abuja, it sort of ties into my silent season. When I was in Abuja, that was when I had some of those experiences that I was sharing about today, and I just noticed that a lot of people were hurting. Like, people are actually going through stuff, and I don't know. You're just them basically. So I wanted an avenue for people to just come and let loose, And for me, worship is one of those things that just help me. It's like therapy for me. It just helps me to reset my brain, reset my emotions, and just, some of my silent seasons, I came out because of worship. And I felt that, let me bring people together and do that. So in Abuja, I had a small thing I was doing, like a small business. And that's one thing about me, like I said earlier, I'm sort of like a development person. So I have a business that is a social enterprise. And apart from the fact that we do branded items and stuff, we also use savings or what we earn, profits, to sponsor some people and to do some, good things for society. So I wanted that to be like a CSR thing. So we had an event in Abuja then, and we got, gospel artists, we had poetry, we had spoken word, we had drama. I think we had like a short message, but it was just basically like a worship gathering, and it was called the Joy Gathering. That was the scripture that God gave me at the time. So that was like a one-time thing. Fast forward to like 3 years after, one of my quiet times, or just like a random moment, God spoke to me again to do a worship session, and this time to name it the Joy Gathering. So that initial one was from a business. It was from a business standpoint, like a business organizing this. But this one was like a weekly thing, and you're just going to call it the Joy Gathering. And the anchor scripture is still, it's from Psalms. That scripture that says that you would give me, in the presence of God, there is fullness of joy. Yeah. So, and it was very specific because the message I got was have a 30-minute session and do it on Mixlr. At the time, I didn't know that Mixlr was doing 30-minute sessions for free. So when I went on and I saw it, I'm like, oh, interesting, right? And I did that. But so yeah, that's basically how that started. Okay.
So let's just get right into it. Knowing what my silent season is all about, would you like to share a story that sort of describes my silent season for you?
I feel that I've had a couple of seasons. In fact, sometime last week, I was thinking to myself, on the road. I do a lot of thinking on the road. I don't know why. That this season I am in, it's a new season. This week alone, it was very physically and emotionally draining for me because I had to take care of my children. They were down with something. So I feel like I've gone through many seasons. But for me, or why we reached out in the first place, was I think that there are three that have stood out for me. The first one was shortly after marriage. I got married, and I think somebody on your show, you've had really great speakers, by the way. Somebody has said something like that.
Yeah.
So shortly after I got married, I my husband and I, we sort of planned to just take a break maybe for the first year and just get to know each other and just be alone. Yeah. But I think some months after the wedding, we found out that I was pregnant. And yeah, happy now. We have a baby coming up, and but sometime after, we hadn't even started antenatal, right? I had just spoken to my parents with the hope, and my husband had spoken to his parents as well, with the hope that we're going to, share with the rest of our family and our friends.
Yeah.
But then my dad, I remember him telling me to go for a check at the hospital. But we didn't really pay much attention at the time, till maybe like a month after or some weeks after, 2 weeks after we were supposed to. And then we went to do a scan, first antenatal. And the person checking it said that prior to this, actually, we had done a pregnancy test, so we knew that I was pregnant. Yeah. At the hospital, we had confirmed, not just a strip test. So the person doing the scan, the sonographer, what they call them, said that he couldn't find the heartbeats, right? Um, so he referred us to go somewhere else, to another hospital to check. I remember when we got to that other place, the person was looking at me like trying to gauge my how I would react.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing, and I don't know, it just really dampened, the whole mood. I remember crying on the way back home because I couldn't really understand it. Nobody, I'd not experienced something like that before. I'd never heard of anything like that before. So the recommendation, what they said was a particular condition, right? That the baby, they couldn't find the heartbeat, something like that, but they could see a sac. So I hadn't had any, one speak about that before too. Which, by the way, I feel like the people need to voice out more about miscarriages or baby loss, and just, for me, it took me a very long time to process it because till up till now, it's sort of like it's detached from me because I try to separate myself from the experience. But I feel like a lot of people need to, because it's to surprise you to know that a lot of people actually go through miscarriages.
Mm.
1 in 10 people, right, or maybe even more that I've heard, right? Anyway, so that was a silent season because we moved from not really wanting a baby at that point to having one, and then finding out that the baby was actually not there even before we could announce to our loved ones properly. And then eventually, we went through the process and we moved on. So I remember shortly after that, I even came to Lagos for the first time to my wedding, and I visited family members, and it was all cool. Some people didn't know anything, so there was even
Yeah.
nothing to worry about because I wasn't showing. It hadn't even gone to like second trimester. It wasn't really like just 3 months thereabouts. But one thing I remember that season was my dad said something to me. He said, so I was sort of skeptical about going for the doctor's recommendation at that point. And my dad is a gynecologist, bless his heart. But I was in Abuja, he's in Lagos. So he told me to just, go do what the doctor said, that God will give me my own children. And up to now, or, during all this season, that was one word that stayed with me. So I don't think for one, I ever doubted that God would actually give me my own children, because I just knew that, this is just a temporary setback, and, we're just going to get over it. So today, yeah, I have a testimony. But after that period, few months after, we had to wait for a while. Now we're actually really interested in getting children because I don't know if it happens to you, but when you don't want something immediately, you're like, okay. But once it seems like it's out of your reach, you suddenly want it so much. So we now wanted to have a baby, and then about 3 or 6 months after, shortly after, we took him again. And this time we didn't wait too long to go to the doctor to do a check like my dad had recommended the first time. And then when we went, I think that was about 6 weeks or 8 weeks in, from the time of conception.
Yeah.
It was the same thing. Another condition, they can't find the heartbeat of the baby. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, what's all this? At that point in time, we hadn't even told our parents yet. So it was just my husband and I that knew about the situation. And it was a lot, but I was very much at peace. And I feel like that is why the joy gathering started for me, because I knew that God was with me. I knew that, this is just a temporary setback. I can't really explain it, but I just knew that something was up, right? And it was time for warfare. And for me, how I could tackle it, or the way to address it, was to go back to God.
Mm.
So I started having emotions. Maybe I should allow you to ask your next question, because I'm beginning to say a lot, right?
No, go through the host. Yeah, okay. Just go ahead.
Okay. All right. So I began to feel like, okay, so this is my husband and I. We began to feel like, okay, there's something here. We should take more, more serious attention, pay more attention to it, because it happened the first time and then the second time.
Yeah.
And so, we were praying and all of that. But it was in that period that it's like my eyes just suddenly opened to see that, wow, people are hurting. For me, I had gone through the first loss, the second loss. And anytime I go to the hospital, then I just see people in the waiting room, and I'm like, wow, people are sad. Like, you can just tell that these guys are, all is not well. They try to look like everything is okay. They are smiling, they are living. But these guys are hurting. These are people that are trying to conceive, probably doing like a fertility treatment. These are people that they probably just lost somebody, or they are sick, but even beyond the hospital walls, in my place of worship, I could see, people were going through losses, job loss, so all sorts of things. And I was just seeing on the internet things around depression. In fact, at the point, I saw that some people were gathering people together and they were just talking about depression and joy and stuff. One very notable person was doing that as well. And it just impressed on me that, you know what, for me, every time I had tough times, it was worship that helped me. And I feel like God is still in the midst of all of these things. I'm not alone. God is always with me, even in the midst of the storm in tough situations.
Yeah.
So I thought about it that, let's have, this gathering together. And, worship really, really helped us. So we prayed, we worshiped God. But at that point, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny because, and like I said earlier, a lot of people did not know. It was just my husband and I initially. For the most part, in fact, I knew about the second one. But we did the same treatment, went to the hospital and did what we needed to do. And that process wasn't even very easy. I was in a lot of pain. I had to go through viewer's discretion. I had to go through an evacuation, first time, second time. And that first time, it wasn't exactly a smooth sail.
Yeah.
I had to do surgery. That's the first time I ever did surgery in my life. And then I had to use drugs again. And if anybody has ever told you how it is, it's worse than menstrual pain.
Mm-hmm.
It's really painful. And for me, I didn't really want it to get to me. So I was still, like maybe the next day or 2 days after, I was still going to work, just doing everything. But it was a lot of pain. And it made me start to question that, am I doing something wrong? Have I sinned against God? Did we do something wrong together as a couple? Is it because of my pledges I made before I got married and God is punishing me?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it just like a storm somewhere? Somebody doing something to me somewhere? But in all of these things, right, I knew that God was for me, and greater is He that is in me than he that is in the world. So God helped us through that time, and that was one silent season. Another silent season for me will probably be in terms of work. So I am a very energetic person. I'm calm, but I also do not like to be idle. I always want to do something. And I'm very fortunate. God has blessed me enough that there has never really been a time in my life where I haven't had work to do or had, a good job or something, right? But there was a season just shortly after NYSC. I was working somewhere and I think there was sort of miscommunication in what the person that hired me was expecting and what, I thought I was supposed to do, right? And, for the fact that they were working in another environment and they were doing another job, but we were not interacting as much as we used to. So I was working so they had two, I don't know how to explain it. They had two organizations. This person was working somewhere and she had her own business somewhere. Yeah. But the feedback she gave me more or less was that, why you're not doing anything for me. And that was not what I thought because I was working where she put me, right? In the organization where I was.
So probably expecting you to work on both ends. Yeah.
Probably. Or to, she expected me to work more with her, but she wasn't giving me that much communication, much to help with and stuff. And so it was shocking because I had worked there previously, and that wasn't the feedback they got from me. And also because even at the point where I was working, doing NYSC, I was supporting them in everything in this other organization. So even the people there, they didn't understand where that feedback was coming from. But there was something she said that sort of hurt me because she said that she would rather give the money she's using to pay me, which was not really a lot. I mean, this was NYSC and how much can they pay? It wasn't even up to 20K at that time. That she could probably be using it to give to church. My dad was a pastor then, instead of paying me. And I'm like, wow, really, wow. Wow. So that was like a season for me. I had never in my life, I remember the nights when she gave this feedback and, the people in the organization were like, Chocolate, what's going on and stuff. I'm like, I don't understand too. And when she said, she's not really doing anything for me, supporting me. Some people tried to defend me because obviously I was doing work where she put me and stuff. But I remember that night I couldn't sleep. I was just up thinking. I was on my bed and I was thinking, how is this going to affect my career? Is this what does this mean for me? Somebody has said this about me. Of course, it wasn't a big deal as I look at it today. But at that point in time, it was almost like my work career had ended. But that was a season for me. And God again came through for me because that period, maybe like that same period, somebody had haunted me and I got another, like a much better opportunity, which is where the industry I'm currently in. But that was also shaky. And for me, work has always been, I have like I'm very driven. I have like these things that I want to do, but I'm learning to just let God lead me.
Yeah, like 10 years plan.
I'm telling you, like this is what I want to do and stuff like that. I'm just learning to let God lead me and not to impose my own will. But I see looking back now that all of those places where I have worked, all those things I have done, they all sort of add up together. There was another place where after I moved to Abuja, where I worked briefly, and it wasn't the best environment. But even in that situation, I learned a lot. I'm grateful for the relationships I formed. I'm grateful for what I learned, even though that season for me, I wasn't doing the best that I thought I could do. But it was still a learning platform. So in the process of work, I think getting a good job that I really loved was a season for me. Yeah.
And not trying to be funny, but as an HR professional, there's always that thing about and this is for everyone listening, right? There's always that thing about clarifying your job roles even before you start.
Yeah.
And it's very important to ask questions. Interview nowadays, if your HR person says, the person before once you're almost done with the interview, the person asks you, do you have any questions for us?
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to ask questions like, what do you expect of me?
Yeah.
On this job, on this role. So it just helps to clarify all those gray areas. However, there are some really funny HR people or companies that will still,
Go outside.
ask you to do A and add B and C, and that's why sometimes again if your HR person has said they would say you'll be required to do stuff outside of your job description. So I get how that would have affected you because
and funny that you said that. We didn't have that discussion. It was just like, oh, you've worked here before, now come and do this now.
Oh yes.
So we didn't have that on board.
That's very dangerous. It's always important to state things out clearly. Also very important to read your offer letters. I don't know.
I didn't get an offer letter.
It's always very important to get one and read it carefully because it can just be a line that changes things, right? Maybe when you recently, you might come, some people are asking me for leave allowance. I was like, my brother, you don't have leave allowance. So, and you're like, what do you mean I don't have leave allowance? And then they have to check their offer and they see that, oh, they don't actually have leave allowance. So it's very important that we just check offers and then just do and be very polite about it. It's not, but it's very important we ask questions. So moving on to the next question, what would you say was most challenging in your first silent season of, and thankfully now you have 2 beautiful children, and you have a good job, or rather you've grown.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, in your current job. So what would you say was most challenging in both silent seasons?
So I think that one of the challenging things for me was that I did not know how to articulate what I was going through.
Yeah.
So it's also something that has affected me recently as I was trying to work on my dissertation for my master's. It was hard. I just sort of took it all in by myself. So nobody can help you. They don't even know how to help you. They don't know what you're going through. So I know how I got through that, which was for me was journaling and talking to God and just worshiping and having the future in mind, that this is just a setback. But at that point in time, it seemed like wow, like what is going on? Also, I think it was challenging for me because my kind of person is I have very high standards for myself, so I can be a little bit hard on myself sometimes. So that's where those questions were coming, like what did I do wrong? What could I have done better and stuff like that. So for me, the self-criticism was challenging. It was challenging. Also, I said earlier, not really knowing how to voice out to get help. But thank God for God because he just, helped me. Another thing that was probably challenging was some people did not understand. I expected people to be there for me, particularly in the job one, but they didn't really understand how to help me. Just also because I also didn't understand, what was going on, right? So I tried. I remember the number of interviews I had done, and funny enough, I'm really grateful that some of them didn't work out because I enjoy flexibility in my career at some point, and I can tell that the process from entering university up till now, God was positioning me to be stronger in communications, media, marketing, development, and stuff like that. So I'm grateful for the journey. But at that point in time, I was confused. I was trying so many doors, particularly for work, to see which one will open, why is this one not opening. And at some point, I was getting so many offers too, but I was confused as to what to do, which one to go for.
Yeah.
But life sort of helped me to fine tune all of that.
Yeah. So for you, it was more of having to voice out, and then just analyzing yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, some of us. Well, I don't know if I have high standards for myself. I like to just chill, and then just enjoy this life.
Yeah.
But maybe my high standards are in enjoyment. Maybe. So if you were to go back in time in your silent seasons, right, what would you do differently?
I won't be afraid. I won't be afraid. Nowadays, I am not sending at all. Like I'm breaking that chains of fear, and I even like to believe that I am called to speak to people that are fearful naturally, because I can relate. There are so many things that I know that I could have done, and I could have started earlier. That just because of fear, something held me back, from doing those things. So I would not overthink things. And I'm also grateful because some of the successful things that I've been able to do by God's grace were because I did not allow fear to hold me back. So for one, I would not allow fear to hold me back. I would get help. If I need to speak to someone to hold me accountable, if I need to get a coach, if I need to, sign up for something that is above my limit at that point, but I would do it so that I would not allow fear to hold me back. Yeah. Another thing I would do differently is that I would document more about my experiences. I journal, but I like to go back and see some of the things that I have written years back. In fact, I brought my journal here because it just helped me to reflect on how good God has been from then till now, and some of the experiences I have gone through, to see my journey, my growth, my exponential growth. And it's funny that I look back at some things I've written as far back as secondary school, as university, and I'm like, you've been so sharp since like way back. Your head is really there, So I would document some of those things that I've gone through more. Another thing I would probably do differently is that I won't just wait for the silent seasons to pass and want it to rush by, because I think that that's what a lot of us want to do. We want the hard seasons to just go by very quickly.
I want it to go by very
But there are some things that you're learning in that season that you need to allow it cook very well so that you get the bottom pot's blessing. There are some things you can't get in a rush. Even now, I mentioned earlier that I had a quite challenging week taking care of physically and emotionally draining. But I'm beginning to see that this phase that my children are this little is just a really short phase. Like, they were literally 1 year yesterday, and one is already almost 4 years old. And I'm like, where is the time flying to? So I will not wait for the seasons to just fly by very quickly. I would,
want to experience
I would sit in it because I know that it's going to go, but I would document about it. I would not be in my own shell. I won't allow fear hold me back. And I'll just enjoy every season I am in and look up to God. Yeah.
It's interesting that you talked about fear, which, thinking about it now, most of us, especially when it comes to job, right? We are just scared to go for that role. Even when we know that we are good.
Yeah.
But fear comes and sort of takes away that. How do I even put it? So fear tells you that you're not good enough. Fear would try to undermine you in a way. But yeah, it's really important. And I only think that's God that can help us with fear. Because remember there was a time I was applying for a job, and I think my mind laughed at myself that what are you going to do there? Look, come back here, go back to you know the normal job that you are doing. You are not good for this. And I remember just telling my it took a while, it took friends, some things that people shared with me. And that's why, the last episode we talked about network. The people around you, your community. And it just took friends who just told me, what, whether you are good for it or not,
Just
go for it. What's the worst that can happen with you? Oh, you're not good for it. Oh, we're sorry. The other better candidate. I was in a job for 5 years. I knew I should have left 3 years, after, commencement of that job. But I still stayed there for an extra 2 years plus because I was just scared of moving on to the next stage. So I get that fear, And also, you talked about documenting, which is very, very key. Having to, because when God has not done it for you, you go back.
yes.
And we talked about it in another episode as well. So I'm actually just excited that God is just bringing all of these things. How has your silent season um affected you? So where I'm coming from with this question is, for some people, their silent seasons make them nicer people to others. Because they've seen what others are going through. They went through it, and then before you're like, why are you always crying? Why are you always this? And then you now go to your silent season and you're always crying. So you now understand why the next person is crying, sort of. So in what ways has your silent seasons, affected you?
I have learned. I have become wiser for it. It also ties back to what you said about the process. All the failures and disappointments have made you where you are today. They have made you stronger. So for me, that's the same thing. My setbacks, all the seasons in life, the season of working, the season of not wanting to ask someone for tea first, so just doing it my own way, even if I have to trek, the season of driving myself, the season of having someone drive me, the season of every season in life of waiting for a baby, of being in the pregnancy and throwing up here and there, because I had that too. In fact, the first pregnancy loss, even though there was no baby, I was still vomiting like crazy. I had like serious, morning sickness, even though there was really nothing, right? So I have been through some seasons that have just made me learn, and they have made me who I am today. I don't feel like any experience is wasted so long as you learn from it. And then for me, significantly, what I think also helped me through those seasons is that I knew for a certainty that God was making a lesson out of those things, not just for me, but for other people. So today, I have extra empathy, and I think you've heard that before, for people that have gone through pregnancy loss. I have extra empathy for people that are saying, oh, I want to wait for a baby. I don't want to hurry up, because I know how that is. I know how stressful it is to, not stressful, it's beautiful, but it's also tasking.
Be honest,
Yeah. To take care of a child. I understand when someone says that, or someone, it feels like they are all alone, nobody understands them when there are people around them, because I know I can relate. Yeah, I can relate. So I have learned to put myself in other people's shoes. And also they have formed part of who I am, of who Temitope is. I'm this person. I was talking to my colleague some weeks back. I went through some tough times in my work, and I don't want somebody else to go through that. So I'm trying to make the process easier for people that are coming after me, because I know that this thing is not, yes, in a way I don't want to deny them of their own, how they will,
but don't worry, they won't show. It's not Gen Z. They don't have
their life is not struggle.
They'll resign.
So I'm learning to make the process easier for other people. So that's why I also try to mentor people. Not that I have to. Everybody just needs someone to just show them the way.
So you sort of have to, if you think about it, because it's just very great. When I mean, like, you have to know, like, when someone is compulsory, but it's just great to give back, because somehow someone gives to you. You either learn from someone indirectly or directly, or you learn the hard way. And like you said, seeing it from that perspective is even better because it now makes you not just human but as a child of God.
Yeah.
Even if some people will not have it or take it from you, some people don't see the value, in mentorship, especially because of, this very interesting generation coming up. Most of them, some of them, not most, think that they can do it on their own. So, they just will just take it like
A pinch of salt.
and they move on.
Yeah.
But you've done your part,
Yeah.
and then you leave the rest for whoever.
Yeah. So I've learned from my silent seasons. I have grown. I have become stronger. And also one thing I know for certainty is that God wanted me to go through those things so that I can give back. Yeah. In fact, that's one thing that helped me to move through this season. The first season when I had baby loss twice was that I'm not sure. I don't know if this thing's for me or God, what you're doing now. But I know that whatever this thing is, I'm going to be able to translate it to help somebody else because it doesn't really, I don't know, like why. Even medically, there's really no explanation for why some of these things happen, right? So I just knew that this thing was just something that God wanted me to take and be able to teach somebody else or be able to help somebody else. So that helped me to go through my season. So you had I don't think I've answered all your question.
No, yes, you are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another thing that I feel like I learned out of that season was the value of communities. So I don't know if people talk about it a lot. Yes, WhatsApp group, Telegram group can be a lot. But I'm talking beyond WhatsApp group and Telegram group. A community of people that are interested in you, you're doing something together. One thing that helped me through my silent season was that I was busy. I didn't have time to wallow in self-pity. I was always moving forward, It's good to reflect, but there's also a place for not sitting in that problem and just saying, what's the next step? What do I have to do? And doing it. So yes, you missed your deadline, but how can you move forward? You've not done what you're supposed to do. You've lost this opportunity. What is the next step, right? Don't just sit there. So I learned how to just, pick up myself and move on. But I also learned the value of communities. I feel like the reason why I did not sink into wallow or despair too much was because I was in a church community, number one. I was in the choir. I was secretary. I had things to do. I had a job, I had family life. So I had things I was doing. And every time, I don't think people understand enough the value of fellowship, of going to church. But there's something about hearing, these things over and over again, letting it sit in you. There is no time that I go to the house of God, I don't feel like I'm hearing a new message. It might have been a scripture that they've said from my childhood, but it just sits in me in a different way. And every time, the reason why we have pastors and leaders in the church is because they're supposed to be taking God's message and sharing to us. So at every point in time, I feel like when I go to church, there's something that they will say that will sort of speak to me, right? So going to church, community, hearing the word of God, even though people did not know that I was going through pregnancy loss, all those things I was hearing was working in me. They were working inside of me and outside of me. So I don't know wherever the issues were from, but that word of God was settling everything for me. And I didn't have to do to struggle too much. But just being in that atmosphere, fellowshipping, all those things really helped me. So yeah, that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah. It's great and important. I actually like the fact that you mentioned the Christian community. If you're not a part of one, it would be great to be part of one. Try to be part of a Bible believing, Christian community. I can give options, not like I go to all of them, but I know I hear of this city church lately. Ellen talks about it almost all the time. And there's also Ignite, GLA. I attend that as well. There's Hillsong. So all of this for them Gen Z millennials, right? There are some of these churches you would like to be a part of, and I know that community is a thing, for all of these churches is great. So like she said, people did not know what she was going through, but it was that positive enough that she could not just learn, but she felt safe, whenever she was, within her community. So I'm really grateful to her for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing your silent seasons, what you learned, the things that worked, for you, and hopefully, for whoever is watching today, if there's anything that you are going through, maybe a bit more similar, it comes to work, when it comes to, family, you're seeking for a community, um, literally
Yeah.
anything,
And not
right?
just church community, work community, like a family, people you call your own.
Yeah, there's always that need to, try to build a very positive community. And there was something she said I wanted to draw out of it. Positivity mentality. I'm not just initially I used to think that it's okay to pity for yourself, but now I'm like, you know what, we'll all be alright. Let's move on. So thank you so much,
Thank you
for
for
this
having
very
me.
insightful session. Thank you guys for watching till this time.
Thank you.
I know that you've learned a thing or two from this episode. God bless you. I also want to thank all our guests from the beginning of this season up until this time. Thank you for telling people about my silent season. Please do not forget to like, comment.
Yeah.
I know that some of these things are really super personal. So like the previous episode rather, with Flourish, I had some deep conversations. I feel like whenever I have episodes with my close friends, I have deep conversations with my close friends about same episode. And thank you guys for the comments. I really appreciate them. Let's keep them coming. Let's comment. Let's like. Let's subscribe. Tell people about this YouTube channel. You do not know who it will bless. And please don't allow see finish make you not to share, right? My friend was telling me how she's always watching this in her office, and she has a colleague by her side that will always join her. And now that colleague is always waiting for, anytime we, release any episode. So please don't see me finish. I beg you. Please, tell other people, share on WhatsApp, be like our WhatsApp mothers, right? Please share. God bless you. For all our vendors, you know yourself, all of my big, big super aunties, who changed my wardrobe for me. God bless you. Thank you so much. It's been an awesome time. Till next episode. I'm signing out. I'm signing out. I'm signing out. Stop it. I don't know what I'm signing out. Bye, guys.